Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely strip away the sanitized Hollywood versions of history to reveal the gritty, complex, and absolutely fascinating truth hidden in our source material. We are going to look at the past not as some glossy fairy tale, but exactly as it actually was.
You know, we all really love to romanticize the past, don't we? We picture these noble gods looking down from the clouds, chivalrous knights riding through spotless courtyards, and polite queens quietly sipping tea. But honestly, if you were suddenly dropped into those eras, would you really want to live there? Or more importantly, would you even survive a single day?
Here is how we're breaking down the source material today. First, shattering historical illusions. 2. Olympus, a dysfunctional family. 3. The medieval survival nightmare. 4. Queens who seized power. 5. Frida Kahlo's defiant art. And finally, the unvarnished truth survives. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, shattering historical illusions. Pop culture versus the gritty truth.
You can pretty much forget those wise, benevolent deities you see in modern movies. Our source material exposes the Greek pantheon as a cosmic soap opera that is completely devoid of modern morality. The mythological reality was chaotic, vengeful, and to be honest, fraught with extreme emotional instability.
Let's move right along to Section 2, Olympus, a dysfunctional family, the divine mess.
The family dynamics here brilliantly illustrate the extreme paradox of the gods. Take Zeus, the ruler of the skies. He wasn't some noble king. The guy was an absolute predator, basically a walking HR nightmare with zero sense of personal boundaries. Hera, the goddess of marriage, ironically relied on pure spite and vengeance to hold Olympus together, because her own marriage was a total disaster. And then there's Hades. Pop culture loves to make him the villain, but the reality? He was just a tired, goth middle manager of the underworld, quietly trying to do his logistical job while surrounded by wailing souls.
And this cruelty wasn't just physical, it was deeply psychological. Just look at the mortal girl's psyche. To earn the god Eros' love, she was forced by a wildly jealous Aphrodite to complete a series of absurdly terrifying tasks. She had to sort a massive mountain of mixed seeds in a single night, gather golden fleece from literally deadly killer rams, fetch water from the fatal river Styx, and finally, journey into the underworld itself to beg Persephone for a box of beauty. It just goes to show that divine favor usually just meant divine torture.
Let's bring it back down to earth for Section 3, the medieval survival nightmare, a day in the dirt.
Hollywood really tries to sell us on this idea of chivalrous knights, spotless castles, and massive tables groaning under grand feasts. But the historical reality? It was freezing, bug-infested straw beds, and literally having to dodge human waste that was dumped directly from windows into the open sewer streets. Just think about the sheer, overwhelming volume of awful stuff a medieval peasant faced just to get through breakfast. You wake up freezing on a dirt floor alongside your livestock. Your bathroom is a communal bucket. Breakfast is a bowl of gloopy, days-old pottage. And because the water is teeming with deadly parasites, you have to drink weak ale just to survive. You put on a scratchy wool tunic that hasn't been washed in months. And oral hygiene? Completely non-existent. By your mid-20s, your smile is basically a rotting catastrophe. And hey, if you got sick from those horrific conditions, the medical cure was a wildly grim process. A barber surgeon, yes, the exact same guy who cut your hair, would diagnose an imbalance of your four humors. The treatment for that? Bloodletting with dull blades or applying hungry leeches to your body. Antibiotics obviously didn't exist yet, so the final step of medieval medicine was simply confessing your sins and praying for survival. The cure was honestly more likely to kill you than the disease itself. Which brings us to Section 4, Queens who seized power. Defying the submissive myth. Not everyone was a victim of their era, though. Deep in the ancient Maya city of Palenque, archaeologists uncovered the Red Queen. She was discovered buried in a hidden tomb alongside the Great King, with her skeleton completely saturated in cinnabar. Now, cinnabar is a highly toxic, brilliant red powder that symbolized blood and rebirth. Burying her in this incredibly potent, dangerous substance proved that royal Maya women weren't just background figures. They wielded immense spiritual, political, and dynastic power. Jumping across the globe to 18th century Russia, imagine this. You are just 14 years old, a minor German princess named Sophie was sent to a freezing, incredibly paranoid foreign court in St. Petersburg, specifically to be used as a political pawn. But she absolutely refused to remain a pawn. Rebranding herself as Catherine the Great, she completely mastered the Russian language and culture. By 1762, she actually orchestrated a bloodless coup against her very own husband, the Tsar, to seize absolute control. She went on to form commissions to rewrite the entire legal code and expanded the borders of the empire massively.
The key takeaway here is how brilliantly Catherine balanced being a philosopher queen who read Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire with the brutal, grounded practicality of an autocrat. When the Pugachev rebellion threatened her empire in 1774, she totally abandoned her progressive ideals and ruthlessly crushed the uprising, maintaining the deeply oppressive system of serfdom just to ensure her own political survival.
Let's look at another incredible figure in Section 5, Frida Kahlo's defiant art, turning pain into power. At just 18 years old, Frida Kahlo was impaled in a horrific bus crash, leading to over 30 agonizing surgeries throughout her life. Her body was utterly shattered. She was forced to paint from her bed, physically encased in plaster and steel corsets. But she absolutely refused to let the trauma silence her.
The European art world really tried to box her in, labeling her a surrealist. But Frida famously rejected the labels others tried to place on her, stating, "I never painted dreams, I painted my own reality." She used her own bleeding, fractured body as her canvas to confront the raw truth of her trauma and her very existence. This absolute defiance is what built her legendary legacy. While traditional portraits of that time heavily favored flawless, passive, conventional beauty, Frida completely shattered that mold. Instead of sanitizing her appearance, she proudly painted her unibrow, her indigenous Mexican heritage, and her broken spine. She painted with a fierce, unflinching stare that challenged the viewer directly.
And she lived her politics out loud, well beyond the canvas. She joined the Communist Party, wore traditional Tohana dresses as a powerful anti-imperialist statement, and openly celebrated her queer identity by taking male and female lovers. When doctors told her she was too sick to attend her very first solo exhibition in Mexico, she defiantly arrived in an ambulance and was literally carried into the gallery on her hospital bed.
Bringing it all together now in Section 6, The Unvarnished Truth Survives, History's Real Heroes.
Whether we're talking about those chaotic, incredibly flawed Greek gods acting out our worst impulses, the miserable, disease-ridden reality of medieval peasants just trying to survive at Tuesday, or the unstoppable defiance of women like Catherine the Great and Frida Kahlo, humanity's true story isn't clean. It is forged in the dirt, the pain, and the absolute fire of survival. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you are handed a sanitized, picture-perfect version of history, I want you to ask yourself, what gritty, fascinating truth is waiting to be uncovered just beneath the surface? Because I promise you, the unvarnished reality is always a much better story. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you read.